course, a little bit of a somber early Sunday here on Fighters Fury down here in South Florida because our boy Jorge Masvidal comes up short in the welterweight championship. Kamaru Usman defending his belt, winning by unanimous decision, 50-45 on two judges' scorecards, 49-46 on the other judges' scorecard, and he remains the welterweight champion of the world. I want to just look. First and foremost, we'll do this. We're gonna get into the Kamaru thing because obviously I'm getting a lot of reaction last night on social media, and a lot of people are upset because Miami was riding with Jorge tonight, and they want to see their guy in a brawl. They want to see the backyard slugger, the street Jesus, him getting the chance to baptize somebody. And when you're pressed up against the cage for the majority of the fight, and you're getting taken down the majority of the fight, and you're getting your toes stomped for the majority of the fight, it doesn't present a lot of opportunities. And I can understand why that's frustrating. It's not the most exciting thing in the world to watch for sure, but it was the key to victory for Kamaru. And the guy's an absolute monster. It was a smart game plan. And that's the sport, that is the sport of mixed martial arts. George St. Pierre made a Hall of Fame career over it, defending belt after belt. Tyron Woodley had 2 fights against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson like that. These guys who are champions, a lot of the time what makes them great is finding that path to victory. And I got to say, a lot of people, I saw some people saying that Kamaru's going to come out of this and he's, people aren't going to want to watch him. I got to tell you, look, his last 3 performances have been very exciting, and even still that wasn't really helping him. So I don't know, outside of I guess him knocking George the bleep out, I don't know what in that realm is going to make people happy. But as far as Jorge Masvidal is concerned, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of the fight, first of all, just huge balls on Jorge for taking this fight on 6 days' notice. That's first and foremost. Not a lot of people in the sport will do that. Nobody in boxing will ever do that. Few will do it in the realm of combat sports, let alone having to drop 20 plus pounds, let alone in the middle of a pandemic, let alone going across the world. And so I just think that has to be recognized, is that the guy went in there and what I think really sucks for him in this regard, and it doesn't mean that he would have won anyway, but what really sucks for Jorge Masvidal is it wasn't like he was a late replacement because he didn't deserve the championship. What pisses me off about it is Jorge Masvidal deserved his championship shot, deserved to have a full training camp, deserved not to maybe get a little bit off kilter and a little bit out of shape, maybe having to drop a little too much weight in the midst of a championship fight week. That all happened because the UFC was being cheap. And that, if you're a Jorge Masvidal fan today and you're pissed off at somebody, I wouldn't be pissed off at Kamaru Usman and the way he fought. If I was going to be pissed off at anybody, and I'm a Jorge Masvidal fan, and I feel like I didn't get the best performance from my guy, Mr. 305, Street Jesus, I didn't get to see Gamebred at his top game. If you're going to be mad at anybody about that, I really think you should be mad at Dana White and the UFC for being cheapskates and not giving him what he was worth from the beginning and having to go to their C choice for Fight Island and ending up with Gilbert Burns after not paying George, not being able to come to Leon Edwards, and then ending up with a situation where you had to go to Gilbert Burns, and then late miracles happen, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this entity that sold for $4 billion, they somehow found the means to make it right for Jorge Masvidal. So I think that if you are a Jorge Masvidal fan today and you want to be pissed off and you want to say, not a true loss. Look, true loss, not a true loss. My style. I'll do that with the Heat all day. Not a true loss. He didn't get a full training camp. But the reason you got to be pissed off is not the way Usman fought. The reason you should be pissed is, Jorge should have had a full training camp. He should have been probably better prepped going into fight week, maybe not having to spend so much energy cutting 20 plus pounds, maybe being in a little bit better cardio shape for that fight. Again, does it mean he wins? No. Kamaru Usman's an absolute monster, guys. And if you haven't watched him, and this was your first venture into it, you haven't watched the Nigerian Nightmare in action, he's actually been a pretty damn exciting fighter. He fought a boring fight tonight. I'm not going to sit here and say that was exciting by any means. That can't be defended. It wasn't an exciting fight, but it was a smart fight. It took him about 20 seconds into the first round to realize, I'm going to struggle with this guy. And when I was watching, I was watching back this week, and I was watching Colby versus Kamaru, and I was like, man, if there are exchanges in this fight, it feels like he is just way too slow for George to get the better end of any of that. And I mean, we saw that from the gate, from the get go. Jorge hit him with the, hit him with the leg kick. He got taken down, popped back up, and even going backwards was hitting with a bunch of stuff and good exchanges. Wobbled him a little bit in the first round. And then from then on, like, the game plan was like, dude, we're going to press this guy up against the cage. We're going to, Kamaru's, he is so strong, and they were going to wear and lean on Jorge, make him uncomfortable with the foot stomps, which I know is getting the meme treatment, the shoulder strikes, which everybody loved with Conor McGregor, but then, he does it. Now he did headbutt him twice. If you want to go dirty tactics, he did cut him twice with headbutts, but, I think that is, if you're looking for things that, if these guys match up again, what would be the outcome? I think there's still just going to be stylistic problems for Jorge. It was very reminiscent, and I tweeted this out after the fight, reminded me a lot of Jorge versus Damian Maia, where Masvidal had his moments against Maia, but he spent so much energy and effort in the fight trying not, and this is when Maia was on his roll, dude. He spent so much energy and effort trying to not get choked out by Damian Maia, that the instances to, quote unquote, baptize somebody were so few and far between. It exhausts you. You're wearing Damian Maia like a backpack the entire time. He has Kamaru Usman leaning on the cage, stomping his feet, elbowing him in the clinch, shoulder striking him, and then eventually getting a couple takedowns and trying to push off and trying to keep him from taking down. Like, that stuff wears on you guys. So I don't think that's going away for Kamaru. Like, that can't be denied. The guy's a monster. And I know a lot of people, I tweeted that out afterwards, and people were like, monster, stomped on his feet. I get you guys, but like, look, part of this isn't boxing, this isn't kickboxing, this isn't Muay Thai. That's the element to it. Some guys win boring. It's not great. Everybody wants to see the striking show. Remember how pissed everybody was at Daniel Cormier when he fought Anderson Silva on 5 days notice because John Jones tested positive, and could he have had this fun fight and memorable fight with Anderson Silva? Maybe, but what if he gets caught with a front face kick, and then all of a sudden he's not champion anymore? What does that do for him? So, I just think it has to be said that for Jorge Masvidal, if I could just say this about him, this guy was thought of as the journeyman. This guy was thought of as maybe a gatekeeper, a 500 fighter, a mediocre fighter. For him to do what he did, if you guys can take any consolation in this, and I know he probably doesn't, and he wants to win a couple fights and get back into the title picture, but to be at his age and to have nearly 2 decades in pro fighting and to have everybody define your career, and you were able to get to the championship stage when everybody thought you never get there, that's impressive in its own right. You can say what you want about, styles and boring match, all that, but just take a step back and think about the journey that it took to get there. fastest knockout in UFC history, knocking out a guy who was way bigger than you, who ended up going to middleweight, and you knocked him out in his own country, flatlined him, and you had the whole world take notice of you for the first time. Maybe there were some of us down here who were still following Jorge. We've, gotten him on the show, and he's been an awesome guest for countless times. It can't, be more appreciative of how great that guy's been to our radio show and station and all that type of stuff. But the world got to take a look at this guy and notice what a badass he is. A guy who, claims he doesn't love doing media stuff became this media darling who's going on Get Up and could be on late night talk shows and all this type of stuff. And is arguably right now, second to Conor McGregor as far as star power in the UFC. Dana White's sitting here this week and saying, this thing is trending as bigger than Conor Khabib. And then you sit back and you think, wow, imagine if you had, 6 weeks to actually promote it. Maybe imagine if you signed the fight back in February, you gave people what they actually wanted money-wise. Imagine if you had media, Radio Row, and all that to lead up to this instead of 6 days. Not that I'm bitter about it or anything, but Jorge Masvidal, to get to this point, to put the game on its head, and to think that this guy who's been doing it for 17 years is now one of the biggest things in the sport, finally, after being pretty anonymous for a long time, only really to the hardcores. That's incredible, and it's awesome, and I hope the city is proud of him, and I hope the people that are supporting him and that are having his back right now and are pissed at the way that Usman fought, I hope that you guys will tune into all of his fights with this much energy every single time on the way out. Hopefully he gets another crack at the belt. He's certainly, I don't think, out of the equation, especially since he took the fight on short notice. I don't know what's next for him. I would say we can get into a little bit of that coming up on the other side. We have a lot to get into from this card too, because it was an awesome night of fights. Quite frankly, the main event was probably the biggest stinker on the card, really, because the other championship fights were amazing. The main card was good. The prelims had some star stuff on it too. Main event was probably the biggest clunker of the night, to be honest with you. But man, I hope Miami's proud of Jorge Masvidal for what he did and to where he's gotten over the last, let's call it 18 months. Going away after his losses, basically, going on this reality show, disconnecting from all of it, and then just starting to obliterate fools. And did it all the way to get to a championship fight where nobody probably thought he was that quality anymore. Everybody thought, really? Masvidal? Yeah, writing him off. But really, look at him. He turned the game. He turned the game upside down, and is a complete badass and has represented this city well. He flew around the world, having to drop 20 pounds in the midst of people getting COVID left and right. He stayed within himself and was able to go the distance. Didn't get finished by Kamaru Usman. Certainly looked exhausted as hell in the midst of that fight. We could break down the fight a little bit more as we come back round by round and then get into the nitty gritty of the card. But just in the grand scheme of things, shout out to Jorge Masvidal, Gamebred. You still got a fan in me. I think you still got a lot. I think you have plenty of fans down here in the city of Miami. I think you have even more fans around the world, and we can't wait to see you fight again. Which, by the way, what a bleep show it started off with on the broadcast, because you had it was narrated by Ron Perlman, and they actually released it a little bit early. They released it on Dana White's Twitter account and feeds. So I had thankfully seen it because it opens up and Masvidal's got the heat hat and whatnot. I was like, oh, heat hat. But but then no Ron Perlman. None of the deep voice Ron Perlman. Like, where's Ron Perlman? And they're just like, it was like the track was completely left off the pay-per-view. It was so strange. So I don't know who's getting fired over that. Then we started the broadcast and you couldn't hear anybody either. It was a complete bleep show as far as that's concerned. But that was definitely a strange one. Where do we want to go with this? All right, we'll start with the main event as far as the fight was concerned, and not the big picture stuff like we were talking about with Jorge. I thought he came out humming. Before Kamaru got that quick takedown on him. Didn't do much with it. Kamaru was pressing forward and Jorge was kidding with a lot of shots coming backwards. You could just see the difference in hand speed. Did grind him up against the cage a little bit. The pace was really fast, and Bisping, who I didn't think was fantastic tonight on the call, by the way. It's him and John Anik, and I'm not, I think the broadcasts for the UFC have been pretty fantastic, and I do think he has a big level to get to, because I honestly think Daniel Cormier is the best thing in sports broadcasting right now, bar none. But Bisping, it was one of those things where it's just like, you ever have like a broadcaster you think I didn't feel like he let Anik flow in enough. I felt like it was Bisping the entire time. Either way, he said this, he did make a good point though about Jorge. Just, it seemed like his pace was pretty high. Like he was swinging for the moon basically on everything. He was still pressed up against the cage at a point. And so, was he able to keep that up? I did give the round to George. I didn't think it was a lopsided round for him, but I did give him the round because I didn't think that Usman did much with his wrestling, and that was actually the one round where you could really say George got off on his offense. And as the judge, it panned out for the scorecards. Two of the judges didn't even give him that round. But if you're a Masvidal fan, that definitely was the one round you could give him. Round 2, Kamaru Usman got him pinned up against the cage early. Probably the least action we had in any of the rounds. This is where he started with the stamping of the feet. He's headbutted him for 2 straight rounds, which cut open Masvidal. No bueno there. Got some shoulder strikes in. Jorge has some good final moments as the round was closing, but he spent so much of the round, dealing with Usman leaning on him. You could just tell it already. Some of the steam was being let off the shots. The round 3 was the most noticeable. I thought George is going to have a gas tank problem. This again goes to, all right, if he would have, I heard a little bit of Dana White afterwards, and he's saying, well, he was training for him the whole time. I mean, isn't it adorable with this guy? Like, it's like, oh, he's been training for the whole time. Dude, you wouldn't pony up with him if you don't, that's the thing that drives me nuts. It's just like, the guy's never wrong. Like, never wrong. Never. It's like, never could acknowledge, oh, yeah, well, maybe, yeah, like, it's like, no, just acknowledge, yeah, he didn't have a full training camp. His camp was broken up. And that's that. And you're like, whoa, I mean, it was only like a 2-week break. No, it was 5 weeks out from the fight. So it's cool though, man. Do your thing. Do your thing. Do your waltz. It's working for you. You still find yourself to be the biggest thing in sports. It's cool. But yeah, round 3 was the most noticeable. And it was a point where there was 2 things that were going on there. You had Kamaru hit him low. The ref stopped it. Masvidal took the breather. And, so they kind of reset. They're right there in the middle of the cage, and he just can't let it go. Like his arms they look weary. They look a little heavy. He said afterwards that he didn't have trust in the cardio that he had, that he probably should have gone a little bit more for broke. Maybe this was a situation where George should have, gone for the kill a little bit more. There's part of me that doesn't think George didn't want to get finished, didn't want Usman to either choke him out or punch him into oblivion because he's got nothing left on the canvas. So he's a complete fighter. That's the thing with Jorge, and what I mean by that is not that he's as good a wrestler as Kamaru, but he doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. A lot of people, when you say like, did Jorge get ragdolled in this fight? That was the thought. Like Colby Covington said he was going to get ragdolled. He didn't get ragdolled in this fight. I think Usman nailed like 17, 18 attempts, and I think he got 5 of them. But he still, I mean, look, I mean, there was definitely a big strength difference. I mean, that was very clear, and I don't think that's going away if they rematch. The element that George is going to have to do, he's going to have to be in a situation where I don't know if he's going to be able to utilize his kicks as much. Because I don't know what that looks like in a rematch if he's able to not be worn out by having to just keep Kamaru off of him. But it was very noticeable in round 3. Like he just couldn't pull the trigger. And that was, I think, one of his best opportunities. And he took a shot. He did throw one shot. Usman ducked under it and took him down. And I thought that really was like the signal of, I don't think this is going to be Georgie's night. I didn't think it was going to be his night. When Usman got that first like true double leg takedown, I thought that was it. Even with him getting up after it, he got tripped down right again. Usman started landing the elbows. And round 4 was a lot. It was starting to get to be the same story. Like he was just getting to it a lot quicker. Kamaru was taking him down, back-to-back takedowns. Usman, Masvidal have a nice little flurry, but it wasn't that long. Then he was back up against the cage, and he's just got deadlies. And I was thinking to myself, this is like very reminiscent of him versus Maya, and this was probably even more exhausting than that fight was, because Maya was kind of like, he was wearing Maya as a backpack the entire time. He's hand fighting. He's trying not to get choked out. And he still has, there's still arguments that he won that fight, like, because his exchanges were so good on the feet. With this one, he didn't really have anything left for Kamaru, past midway in the fight. He just didn't. So, round 5 was pretty much the same all she wrote. You got, kind of a Hail Mary at the end, like a Hail Mary 45 seconds. Not much happening there. Boom, that's all she wrote. Kamaru Usman defends the belt, and he is still your welterweight champion. So, where do these fellas go from here? I think that, you could go a couple places. Kamaru, the Gilbert Burns, he is number 1 right now. He didn't lose his position. So do they go to that fight? Possibly. I'm sure Kamaru doesn't want that fight. And it's not that he's scared of it. It's just a weird fight for him, man. I've spoken to multiple people who are close to Kamaru. Lex McMahon, Titan FC's told us he's cool with Kamaru. He's cool with Gilbert. Rashad Evans, who comes on the morning show frequently, he's just like, there's no way that's not a weird fight. He's mentioned Leon Edwards a couple times. It doesn't thrill, I think, anybody. One, he's beaten him, even if it was a long time ago. It feels like with Leon needs a win for people to remind people, for us to be reminded of who he is. Him versus Jorge is an interesting one. I mean, like, I guess the question might be more so, okay, if it's not Gilbert, I know that Usman threw out the GSP Hail Mary tonight. I can't see. I think if GSP comes back for anybody, it's Khabib. I don't think it's going to be Kamaru for this, greatest welterweight of all time. I think it's an unseatable throne. Even if Kamaru beats GSP, just being the age that he is, I just don't think that's a mountain he can climb. I don't think it is. And you're talking about, okay, you're beating a guy who's 40 years old. I don't know, man. It's a tough look. So no, I know a lot of people. Look, my social media landscape was definitely skewed on Masvidal fans, and it's not like Kamaru made a lot of fans who are in. I don't think he probably made a lot of it. I actually feel bad for Kamaru in some ways because, a lot of people were, not an exciting fighter. He's boring. Why would you perform like that when all the world's, bro? You perform to go win the title. Don't begrudge a guy for doing that. That's stupid. It really is. Like, and I'm not trying to sit here and argue and say it's an exciting style the way he went and won fights, but he has been and exciting fight. Him versus Colby was a fun fight. What he did to Tyron Woodley, if you guys had seen the ride that Tyron Woodley had been on and how he beat him, holy crap, man. So, look, his resume is getting very impressive. Very, very impressive. You know, when you're scrambling this much to look at guys in the welterweight division, like who do you actually think is a challenge? And, you know, he's got to reach to the welterweight GOAT to do it. You know, you're doing some damn good things. So yeah, he deserves a lot of praise. Just for his title reign. It's been very impressive. And yeah, I do think he deserves some, you know, he was saying, you know, don't I deserve some credit for staying in and taking the fight on 6 days notice? Yes, but also in some ways, like if you're gonna hit George with, you know, this is who I was preparing for the whole time. You know, we know that he was preparing for Masvidal a lot of the time too. So, you know, I just give him a lot of credit because he went and he executed better. He did. And Masvidal didn't. And, you know, Masvidal afterwards is saying, you know, with a full training camp and all that type of stuff, he wasn't so much talking about the shape, but he feels like the game plan would be better if his second time around, that he knows the map to getting it. I do think there is some questions though. If you're a Jorge Masvidal fan, if you are him, you know, does that involve being able to beat him in a 5-round fight? Because, you know, I went into this and I know I picked him to win, but I think my pick was last week that I said I thought George could get 3 rounds. And, you know, I do think there were probably because Usman was fighting, he was fighting a wrestling style, which obviously the judges like because they gave him all 5 rounds. So not even the round that people thought Masvidal could have gotten, which was round 1. They didn't even give him that. But if you do get if you do get 3 guys, and we'll get into the judges from the co-main event in a minute. But if you do get the right guys in there and they like your style, could he go and win 3 rounds out of 5? Perhaps. If he's able to keep up that striking pace, I think the question is, can he keep that pace off after also having to keep Usman off of him? Can he, you know, he was saying, you know, I got to believe in my cardio a little bit more. He told Megan Levy that afterwards. Oh, we'll see, man. He says he's going to be back in the gym real quick. If I had to handicap what his next fight was, if I had to guess what his next fight would be, I would put it in this. I think Conor McGregor's out right now. That was the big play. I think that if he would have won that, you guys know what I said this week on my show. I said Hard Rock Stadium, January 2021, Masvidal and McGregor would have been in Miami. He kind of dismissed Colby afterwards, although I don't think you should dismiss that because I think it's a fun grudge match. Colby is, you know, number 2 in the rankings. So if Gilbert Burns is going to get the title shot, rankings wise, it makes the most sense to fight him. Leon Edwards, obviously, you have the 3-piece Minnesota thing, so that's got a nice background to it. Could you put that as a co-main with Kamaru and Gilbert? You could do that, or Nate Diaz. If I had to guess, I would say, man, if I had to guess, I'm going to say Jorge, Leon Edwards. I think that would be the route I would probably go. You know what? No. No. You know what? I'll be bold on it. I'm going to say this. I would go him versus Leon Edwards because outside of Colby, welterweight guy that people would probably respect the most. He's not going to fight Tyron. They're boys. So I would go him versus Leon Edwards, then him versus Nate, then him versus Colby. I don't think that they'll match him up with Colby not because they think Colby will beat him, even though maybe Colby can. But I just don't think that they want to fight another wrestler, be in a position where maybe Jorge just loses a style matchup rather than just an outright fight. And I think that's probably the route they're going to go. I would say it's probably going to be, I'm going to say they fight the highest ranked guy who's not Colby Covington, and I guess that would be Leon Edwards. So that's what I would guess, because he's not going to fight Tyron. They're close. And then Nate, Nate I would put 2. Stylistically, he's already beaten him. 2 stars fighting each other. Although I don't know if those two could main event a pay-per-view again. I don't know if that would sell the way it did the first time, just because, you know, the BMF, the organicness of it, the rock, all that type of stuff. I just don't know if it could live up to that again. So I would go with that, and then I would say Colby third. Not even that he's just not the most deserving to fight Jorge. I just think that the two of them, they don't seem to like really want to fight each other that much. I don't think Colby really wants to fight him. I don't think Jorge wants to fight him. I think they used to be close, had a bad falling out. Maybe know each other too well. I don't know. I don't know. Something about those two just doesn't seem like it's squaring off in the right way. So I think if I had to guess Jorge's next fight, I would guess it's going to be Leon Edwards. I think that's the route you go. Is you fight the guy, 3-piece in a soda. You can roll that video time after time again. Winner gets the title shot, and I think that's the smart play.